Meg Kay here for Dot Esports, and I'm joined today by SK's Jesiz after SK have just put on a pretty monster 2-0 weekend in the LEC versus Mad Lions and Excel. Jesiz, I guess congratulations are in order, first of all. This has been a pretty big weekend for you guys. How's morale like right now for you?
Uh, I think morale is good. Um, I think in terms of progress throughout the split, we have reached a point of very set fundamentals, both individually and also as a team. So I think the only frustrations are very healthy frustrations in terms of like now we're starting to mostly only scrim the top teams in LEC, and obviously the top teams are giving us a hard time in practice, which is obviously frustrating because we all want more from ourselves as individuals and more from ourselves as a team, and we want to push ourselves to that other level. Like we want to get top 2. So I think that's like the main thing in terms of frustration. But in total, like the mood and the morale is great. It's better than any team I've been on. So yeah.
That's always really good to hear. I guess you have quite an interesting perspective on empathizing with player frustrations because you are a coach who used to be a professional player yourself.
Yeah.
How much does your history as a pro affect the way that you coach?
I would say 90% maybe. I think what differs me from other coaches is definitely my player experience,
Okay.
because I both understand, how it feels to play certain champions in the game. Honestly, everything I do is just based on feel, similar to any player, I think. Like when I'm watching a game, let's say we're scrimming and I'm just like watching and I'm trying to write down points that I want to talk about in the review. I do it based on feels. So like if I feel something is wrong, then I will go back and look over it, and similarly with draft and like direction in terms of picks and stuff, I just do it based on my feeling, which comes from my player time. And then in terms of like just talking with my players, a lot of it definitely comes from just being a player and understanding where they're coming from and being able to share my experiences. But I also think that it just comes natural to me to understand the human mind, and it's also just an interest of mine. So it's just it's maybe a slight mix, but it's majority is definitely from being a pro player.
Okay, there are quite a few coaches in the LEC who are purely coaches who have never had this player background that you obviously yourself have. Do you think that background is important for being a coach? Do you think coaches who have been pros are better equipped to be coaches, or do you think it's dependent on the individual?
I think coaches who have been pro players have a higher ceiling. I don't think it's required at all. I think
Okay.
it very much depends on the players that you have. So, for example, if you have players like Caps, Wonder, Jankos, Reckless, etc., like the G2 lineup, for example, I don't think it's required that you are able to teach your players like a lot individually, because I do think that it's more about at that point to be able to facilitate and just like be more of like that backbone structure for the team, and be more of like a traditional sports coach type of thing. Whereas, for example, in my shoes, or maybe majority of teams in LEC or the West shoes, there's a great benefit to being able to do more than just the systematic coaching.
Okay, I guess something that you mentioned earlier was the different team environments of teams that you've been on, and I want to quickly hark back to your Fnatic days as a player. Obviously, the fan base for Fnatic is famed for just how utterly vast and very vocal it is, and now on SK, you have potentially a slightly smaller but equally as supportive fan base. How much difference does fan input make to the overall kind of feeling and morale of a team?
I think it makes no difference.
Okay.
I'm not gonna bullshit. I don't think it makes it maybe makes a super slight difference. It obviously depends on player to player, but I don't think it makes a massive difference. I think it's all about the players feeling confident in themselves and feeling confident in each other and feeling that your teammates feel confident in you. And so it's more about like the inner like core feeling within the team, and it's not so much external. Like I think everything like fans and outside opinions and everything is just background noise.
Okay, if it's not the fans then, what is the what is kind of the difference maker of the SK atmosphere compared to all of the other teams that you've been on? What makes SK different and what makes SK, I guess, special?
I mean, I think it's just I think we just very much picked up players that were very aligned with our views and that we felt had obviously a lot of upside, but also in terms of just what they wanted to achieve, that they were very honest about actually wanting to put in the work and actually wanting to be the best and not just settling with going to playoffs or just like being a middle of the pack team, and everyone actually wanting to be the absolute best player in their role and the best team in Europe or the world. And I think a lot of that, a lot of our good team environment comes from that, like the seriousness and that everyone can feel that everyone's aligned in that sense. And then I think we also just very much do a good job in facilitating a good team environment, like and allowing people to be honest with each other and just like be themselves and flame each other and just be like a little bit toxic. And yeah, I think a lot of it definitely comes from the staff, because obviously me and Joe Joe Innerflame, we've been together for a while now and on many different teams, and we always try to do the same thing, which is just be very honest and blunt, both with each other in front of the players, but also just very blunt with the players and encourage the players to be very blunt and open and be a little bit toxic, like a healthy toxic.
Nice little dose of toxicity can be very healthy, I think.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of it comes from that, and I think we just have good respect for each other, and everyone's just like very young-minded and we have a very big emphasis on just having fun. And my coaching also very much encourages that, because again, I'm not very systematic. I'm very flexible and loose in my coaching. Again, that's what I preferred as a player, and I think that works and it fits me very well. And I think that also just allows everyone to just be less robotic and just more human, and to be able to just feel like they're part of our direction, or like what direction we take.
Obviously, one of the key things, aside from everything that you've just mentioned with this kind of flexibility and this openness that you have amongst the team, one of the key things that makes SK so different to the rest of the LEC is that you're one of the few teams left that has a role-swapped player. How do you approach coaching a team with a role-swap player? Is there any kind of difference in how you have to go about it, or does it not really make that much difference to your coaching style?
I don't think it makes much of a difference. I coach Gen X like I would coach any other player. Obviously, I deal with every player based on their personality and just how they are as a player, like what makes them good and what makes them bad. So obviously, I do speak to people differently and I coach people differently. But in terms of just my approach, it's very similar in every regard. Like I just view Gen X as a rookie, honestly.
Okay.
Not as a veteran.
Okay, my final question is actually related to a tweet from Froscurian, which I think was, can't remember which day specifically, but it was something she tweeted last weekend. But talking about how SK feel like they have a very clear idea of how they want to win the game. When they enter the game, there is a set system by which they work, and their game plan is set around kind of fulfilling that system. And she mentioned that that's also something that she thinks has followed you from the different teams that you've gone to. Would you say that's fair? Would you say that you have a kind of set game plan in your coaching style?
I think in the past, maybe a little bit. I have joined teams where I joined like last minute. So for example, I joined LLC right before the EU Masters. I joined Mistress Premier before the EU Masters, a bit like late as well. I joined SK last summer, pretty late as well. I joined Misfits in summer 2018. So in general, I've joined like last minute, and then I've made adjustments that needed to be done in order to win like the short-term games. So absolutely, like during those moments, I've been very good at just recognizing, okay, what are our strengths and what do we actually need to do to win like the upcoming games now, short-term. But I think I thought it was funny, and I appreciated the tweet very much, because to me it's just a praise nonetheless. Whether I don't think it's completely true. I think it's like a half truth what she wrote, because I think this split, what differs us from other middle of the pack teams, is that we middle pack teams, or even bottom teams at the moment, is that we focused more on fundamentals, like individual fundamentals and team fundamentals, rather than just hammering down on one style. which I think a lot of teams were doing. Like good examples were Excel and Schalke, for example. We immediately hammered down on styles, and now you can see them struggling a little bit more because they had their style, and then they went all out on that, and then maybe the patch changed a little bit, and maybe they just felt like it wasn't as strong anymore, and then it's just harder to branch out once you've hard committed to one thing. And I think I took the opposite approach, and I think that's benefiting us a lot now because we're just adapting to what we think is the strongest in every patch, which is what, for example, G2 and Rogue do. So I think that's what set us apart this spin. I think that's why, while I appreciate the tweet, I don't think it's entirely true for this split specifically.
Well, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you and getting a kind of coach's perspective on how things are going on SK, and long may the win streak continue.
I hope so, but unrealistically, it's probably not going to happen. So